More than a dozen videos and cell phone surveillance videos of a little boy crying and asking for bread, water, or milk. That's what a jury saw today in the trial of Miranda Cervera, who's accused of starving his 4-year-old son to death.
2 black eyes and protruding bones. That is how a 4-year-old boy looked in a police body cam footage about 4 weeks before he died.
A woman was sentenced to 25 years in prison for starving her 4-year-old stepson to death.
Miranda put all locks all over it. The fridge, the counter, everything. She will get mad whenever he spills stuff or he does something on accident.
Let's see you cry for more bread, bro. Cry for more bread, and I'm going to put your squats. Those are the words of this defendant 4 days before his son of starvation. 4 days before he died of starvation.
Hey guys, welcome back to another story on my channel. I hope you guys are doing great. I know I've been a little MIA the last couple of weeks, but I have been a bit sick and it just took me a while to get back on here. But if you guys want to keep up with me, make sure to check out my other social medias. I'll leave them here. I'm way more active over there. Now for today's video, I'm going to be talking about a case that is extremely heartbreaking and tragic. And while I was reading about this case, I couldn't help it but get emotional. I don't understand how some people can do the things that they do to another human being, especially when it comes to children. This case is about 4-year-old Benji Cervera and how he was starved to death by his stepmother and father. There are disturbing videos have been released of Benjamin begging for bread, as well as videos of him desperately looking for food in the middle of the night while everyone went to sleep. These videos are very difficult to watch, and this entire case brought me to tears, which is why I think it's important that people learn about it and why I'm here sitting down talking to you guys about this case. The people that were supposed to take care and protect this little boy did the complete opposite, and I will never understand how anyone, let alone parents, can do this to their child. After seeing all the evidence presented in this case, I thought it would be a simple one, but I feel like Benji did not get the justice he deserved. And I'm pretty sure you guys will be upset when you learn about the outcome of this case. I'm going to break it all down for you guys, so let's talk about it. Benjamin Cervera, also known as Benji, was born on September 28, 2016 to his mother Erica Flores and his father Brandon Cervera. Benji was described as a happy and fun little boy, as well as quiet and shy at times, and he lived with his biological mother for the first 2.5 years of his life. But then on January 2019, Benji stopped living with his mother and his father Brandon gained full custody of him. It's not clear why all of a sudden Benji's father gained full custody of him, but that's just what happened and that's all we know. Now Benji's father had another son from a previous relationship and his name was Brandon Jr. and he was around 7 or 8 years old at this time. So it was the 3 of them, the father, Brandon Jr. and 2-year-old Benji. But all of that would change a year later in February 2020 when Brandon met Miranda Casarez. Brandon and Miranda met at IHOP where she worked, and it was said that she was only there for a few months at that point. Now Miranda was a single mother and had a 3-year-old son from a previous relationship, but despite this, things moved pretty quickly between Brandon and Miranda, and not only a week into them talking, she already moved herself and her son into Brandon's apartment. So now at this point, it's Miranda, her 3-year-old son, Brandon Jr., and Benji all living in that apartment. Soon after, less than a year later, in January 2021, Brandon and Miranda welcome a baby girl named Mariah. So you can see how everything's happening so fast, and now they have 4 children living in that apartment. They took on more of a traditional role where Brandon would go to work and Miranda would stay home with all the kids. In March 2021, 2 months after their daughter was born, the family decided to move to a new apartment in Northeast San Antonio. This is where Miranda claims that Benji Benji's behavior began to change. She said that he began throwing tantrums and he was just misbehaving, and because of this, his father would discipline him with a belt. It wasn't until July 20th, 2021, someone had called the police to do a welfare check on Benji. When police arrived to the home that night, they were shocked what they saw. And this is a trigger warning because what I'm about to talk about and show you guys is not easy. When police walked through that door, the first thing that they saw was a skinny 4-year-old Benji with 2 big black eyes. But not just that, Benji had bruises all over his body, and when they lifted up his shirt, he had tons of bruises on his torso. He also had an injury in his ear, and because of that, he had a gauze just like sticking out of his ear. The officer said that he was very skinny and did not look like a normal 4-year-old. When they asked why did Benji have all these injuries, Miranda and Brandon said that he had behavioral issues and that he would do this to himself. They said that he had a habit of constantly poking his eyes and ears, and that's why it caused those injuries. Which I've never heard of someone doing that to themselves, especially to the point where they have very visible injuries like Benji did. Then officers decided to bring Benji alone into the bathroom, and they asked him again, "What happened to you?" Benji said the same thing his parents said and told the officers that he did it to himself and that he poked at his eyes and ears. But when you watch the video, it doesn't sound genuine, and it kind of sounds like Benji was rehearsed and told to say that. The officers then left, and nothing was done to take Benji out of that home despite seeing all these bruises and injuries to his body, which I genuinely don't understand. If I were to see a child in that state, number one, I would question it the same way they did, but also I would push to want to look further into this. Now this is where things take a turn. Less than a month later, on August 17th, 2021, while Benji's father was at work, Miranda was seen outside of the apartment, hysterical, waving her arm, trying to get someone's attention while she held on to Benji. That's when a woman driving in her car happens to see Miranda and gets out of her car and tries to help her. This woman's name is Julia, and she says that Benji was unresponsive, but it seemed like he was still breathing. She also went on to say that she did not believe Benji was 4 years old because of how small he was. She emphasized that he was very skinny for a 4-year-old and was still wearing a diaper, so it made her think that he was much younger. Miranda then drove to the nearest hospital, and when doctors saw Benji for the first time, they realized the severity of his condition. Doctors tried to do everything they could to save Benji's life, but unfortunately, he didn't make it. At the time of his death, Benji weighed 28 pounds, and the doctor said that he had bruises all over his body. Immediately, the staff at the hospital contacted police because they felt like his death looked suspicious. Investigators began questioning Miranda and Brandon, and they got a search warrant for their home as well as their phones. When they entered the apartment, what they found was disturbing. Right away, they noticed all the locks in the kitchen. They had locks on their fridge, on their kitchen cabinets, and everywhere where there was food. They also noticed a lot of cameras set up in the apartment, especially in the kitchen. From their point of view, it just looked a little bit odd. Why are there so many locks, and why is there cameras everywhere? Now, they retrieved all these cameras and began looking at all the footage, and I was not prepared to see what I saw. I think this was one of the saddest videos I've seen in a while. Watching how this boy would sneak out of his room in the middle of the night to look for food, it literally broke my heart. It was said that before Miranda moved into the home, Benji was able to just go in and out of the cabinets and fridge and get whatever he wanted. But then these locks were added, and it became more difficult for Benji to get food. Video surveillance in Benji's room also showed him trying to get out of his bedroom, but there was a lock, so it was difficult for him to go into the kitchen in the middle of the night and get food. Investigators also noticed that Benji was forced to sleep on only a mattress on the floor with urine stains all over the mattress, so it painted this picture that he was being neglected. There's also footage of Benji sitting in the dark and crying and begging for bread, and Miranda is heard saying that he's not going to get any bread and for him to lay down. Now, in another disturbing video which was taken on Miranda's phone, Benji is seen crying and begging for food and water, and To be honest, I don't know why Miranda's taking this video. It's very odd, but this video was taken just days before Benji passed away. Miranda argued that she only took those videos to show CPS and Benji's father because she wanted him to start helping her around the house instead of him spending his evenings with his friends. Which still makes no sense to me, because if this little boy is seen crying and begging for food and water, it just shows that he's clearly hungry. Why would you want to show that to CPS? I don't get the logic behind that. But let's move on. After gathering all the shocking evidence against Brandon and Miranda, they were arrested and charged with injury to a child causing serious bodily injury by omission. Now, they both had separate trials and they recently took place, and basically both defense teams were just trying to put the blame on each other. Now, you're probably wondering, what does Benji's father have to do with any of this if Benji passed away while he was in the care of his stepmother Miranda? Well, the prosecution said that Brandon aided in starving Benji, which led to his death. A pediatrician confirmed that Benji's autopsy determined the cause of death was starvation. While being questioned by the prosecution, the pediatrician discussed Benji's growth charts, and the jury was shown comparisons of his weight and height over time. By his 3rd birthday, Benji was in the 15th percentile for growth, which is considered normal. He was described as a naturally little guy, but a normal little guy. Now, you gotta remember, by his 3rd birthday, Miranda either just entered Benji's life or she wasn't in his life just yet. However, by his 4th birthday, while Benji's weight was initially progressing, a visit 10 months later showed a drastic drop to the lowest percentile. This wasn't normal anymore, and at the time of his death, Benji's weight was critically low, classified as under normal. And the pediatrician would go on to say that children should grow consistently during childhood. They shouldn't be losing weight if they're getting proper nutrition. He then concluded that there was substantial evidence that Benji had been a victim of starvation leading up to his death. But you would think that things could not get worse, but they do. I'm gonna tell you what Miranda did to this little boy, and again, trigger warning. During the trial, there was evidence that Miranda forced Benji to drink hand sanitizer, hot sauce, urine, and even eat bread with dirt on it. And these claims were backed up by Benji's older brother, who actually saw a lot of the and all the things that Miranda did to little Benji. He went on the stand and testified against Miranda, and he said he was terrified of her. But Miranda would deny all these claims and said that she loved Benji like her own child and that she would never do that to him. Even though Miranda was with the kids most of the time during the day, you're not gonna tell me that Benji's father, Brandon, had no clue that any of this was going on. He was at home after work. He slept there every single day. He saw the kids. He knew what was in that kitchen. He knew about the locks. He knew about the videos. He knew about everything. So there was no way that he didn't know about what was going on in his home. So in these videos, when Benji's asking for food, he's particularly asking for bread. And there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe he just really liked bread and he preferred to eat bread. Investigators found videos on Brandon's phone where he's threatening Benji with doing squats if he keeps asking for bread. Another video, Brandon is heard yelling at Benji saying, "Let's see you cry for more bread." Which I don't understand why this family had this obsession with recording Benji whenever they punished him. Why was everything being recorded? I mean, it did provide great evidence for the prosecution, but aside from that, did they get some sort of satisfaction from seeing Benji crying? Investigators also found text messages between Brandon and Miranda, and in one of these text messages, Brandon is telling Miranda to not give Benji any dinner, which you would think is pretty crucial evidence proving that his father was also involved in not giving Benji some food. But you'll see how this entire thing plays out at the end of this video. During the entire trial, the defense team pretty much tried blaming each other for what happened to Benji, and no one wanted to take any responsibility or accountability for Benji's death. Miranda's defense constantly stated that Brandon was the one who withheld the food from Benji, and Brandon's defense pretty much said that Miranda was the one who spent most of her day with Benji, so she was in charge of taking care of him and making sure he was fed. In regards to the locks, Miranda said that Brandon was the one who installed these locks on the kitchen cabinets and fridge. But in Brandon's defense, he said, well, yeah, we had these locks installed, but the fridge and the cabinets were never locked, and Benji she always had access to them. Miranda also said that Brandon was the one who spanked Benji all the time and would drag him around the house whenever he soiled his diapers. Again, Miranda's defense, they really tried to make the jury feel bad, as if she was this great mother, and she even went about getting a tattoo after Benji passed away. She got Benji's name tattooed along with his favorite Paw Patrol character, and they showed this to the jury in an attempt to make the jury feel bad and make it seem like, oh yeah, she really loved Benji. And I don't feel like this was genuine at all. I think that Miranda was running out of options on how to show the jury that she cared for Benji, when in reality, she didn't. During the trial, Miranda's defense hired an expert that would go on to say that the medical examiner's assessment was incorrect and that Benji did not pass away from starvation, but instead it was because of other factors such as brain swelling, autism, and type 1 diabetes. How does that cause a child to have so many bruises on their body and be extremely underweight? I don't know. I'm not a professional, but I don't see how autism can cause someone to pass away. Now, something that was unexpected and shocked me were the text messages found between Miranda and her mother, Elise Casarez. Miranda's mother went on the stand and testified, trying to defend her daughter, but it backfired on her. The prosecution showed the jury very odd and just gross messages between Miranda and her mother. In a text message, Elise sent Miranda a photo of an adult with a diaper on, and she sent her this because she was trying to poke fun at Benji because he was almost 5 years old and still wearing a diaper. It's just very weird. Why are you making fun of a child? What did this child do to you? I don't know. It just gives me like very evil vibes. In another text message, Miranda told her mother, I don't know how much longer I can take this. This effing kid. My son can't sleep because of this little 5-year-old that everyone thinks is so perfect. I'm done. This kid needs a good one. When asked about this text message, Miranda said that she didn't send it and it was Brandon. But why would Brandon be texting Miranda's mother? It just doesn't make any sense. In another text message, Miranda and her mother spoke about withholding food from Benji. It's just very weird, and like I said, feels very evil how these women were just picking on this little boy for absolutely no reason. Miranda ended up taking the stand as her last opportunity to win over the jury. When she felt like there was no other way to defend herself, she did admit that she failed to properly take care of Benji. She also said that she struggled with thoughts since his and basically trying to make the jury feel bad for her, which she's making it all about her now. Her attorney described her as a loving mother who loved children and tried to paint this picture that she also had a very tough upbringing. It's crazy how they always do that when they try to defend someone for being such a shitty human being. However, the prosecution had very strong evidence against Miranda, and this played a crucial role in her conviction. Now, going back to Brandon's defense, they really tried to pin everything on Miranda and said that Brandon was out of the house most of the day, so Miranda was his primary caregiver. They also emphasized that on the day Benji passed away, Brandon wasn't even there. They made it clear that Miranda most likely did something to Benji while Brandon was at work, which caused his Brandon's defense tried to convince the jury that just because his father said no to bread, it doesn't mean that he was depriving him of food. They said that it was all a misunderstanding, and in reality, Benji was always asking for bread and they didn't want Benji just eating bread, so that's why they said no. They also addressed why Benji's father made him do squats and said that the squats were meant as positive reinforcement, not punishment. They said it was meant to make Benji stronger and it prevented him from constantly asking for bread, which I think is a stretch because we've seen a lot of cases where parents use physical punishment on their kids, and depending on the extent, it can be considered a But what Brandon's defense was trying to prove was that Benji was not starved by his father, and they shifted all the blame to Miranda and said that what Miranda did to Benji on that day caused him to pass away. Now, despite Miranda's defense, the jury was not swayed, thank God, especially after they saw a video the morning Benji passed away where he was crying and begging for food. It didn't take the jury long to find Miranda guilty, and she was sentenced to 25 years in prison, which I don't think is a lot of time, but wait until you find out what Brandon got. After hours of deliberation, 12 jurors found Brandon Cervera not guilty, which, had he been convicted, he was facing life in prison. This verdict was a huge surprise to a lot of people who believed that Brandon played a part in Benji's death. I was shocked. I truly believed that this man was going to be convicted and go to prison. Even though Brandon wasn't present all the time because he was at work, he was still aware of what was going on at home. There were the videos, the abuse, the logs. There was so much evidence. I don't get how this man was able to walk free. Now, let's say that Brandon was not involved in the or withholding food. If he saw that Miranda was treating his son like this, why didn't he do anything to stop it? I just feel like there were so many opportunities to save this little boy, and justice was not served for him. This case is so sad and it made me feel some sort of way. I don't get how people can be so cruel, especially to children. I hope this woman spends the full 25 years in prison, and by the time she gets out, she'll be like in her 50s. So basically that's like half her life. And for Benji's father, I hope this man reflects on what happened to his son, especially since he dodged a life sentence. He has 2 other children to take care of now, and I just hope he does better. But that is it for today's case. If you guys found this video interesting and you learned something today, please make sure to give it a like. It literally takes 1 second. Also, if you want to be notified for all future videos, make sure to subscribe and be a part of my community. I don't post every day on YouTube, but I do on my other social medias, so if you want to keep up with me, make sure to follow me. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Stay safe. Bye.